from across this gorgeous planet. We are one church, many paths, one mountain, where our mission is what Dr. Mark Goffney and Barbara Marx Hubbard call the planetary awakening in love through unique self symphony. And together we declare that the last day of the old face of evolution is honored as the first day of the new face of creation. I am Christina Tehel, the co-executive producer, along with Krista Josepha and Kirsten Zohar, and we are delighted to be here with you today. I welcome all the new people. Please do share you are new in the chat box. We want to hear from you. When you do chat, make sure that you chat to everyone by checking that your settings say all panelists and attendees and not just all panelists. Use the chat function to say hi, to let us know where you're from, and to resonate the Dharma. In one church, many paths, one mountain. We are connected, we are whole, and we're expressions of the entire process of creation. We are activating a new humanity, and we are awakening as a new species. Homo amor, the fulfillment of Homo sapien. We are a church, a synagogue, a mosque, a temple, a zendo. We're all of it. No one is excluded. Everyone is included. And we come together to attune to the evolutionary impulse awakening within us. Welcome home, everyone. We're overjoyed to be with you today in week 197. Let everyone know about One Church, Many Paths, One Mountain. We are doing this primarily through word of mouth. Barbara talked about each of us having a family of 10 here in church, each of us tending our evolutionary family. And I can personally say that leadership around church is absolutely a sacred opportunity. On YouTube, we are One Church, Many Paths, One Mountain. We've got lots of activity there on our YouTube page, so do check that out. On Facebook, we are facebook.com/onechurch.world. And right now, we are streaming live on both YouTube and Facebook. So take a moment and copy either of the links from this Zoom chat box and share that live link on your favorite social media channels like Facebook or Twitter. After church, we will send you an email to invite your friends and family, and forward that email right after church. Spend time on our church website, www.onechurch.world. On the top menu of the home page or the bottom of each page, you will find our membership link. With that, I give you a little bit of what to expect over this next hour or two. We begin with a Dharma recap, then Dr. Mark sets our intention, then David resonates the evolutionary love code we are working with, then we move into prayer, then our sermons, and then we close. When we close, we bring everyone on for goodbyes. Mark wrote what he called evolutionary love codes. Mark and Barbara studied the codes together, often comparing them with Barbara's own 52 codes for conscious self-evolution. These codes grew out of their radical commitment over 100 collective years, crystallizing the new story of humanity and, quote, evolving the course of consciousness and culture, which is the source code of love, unquote. Each church is a standalone, and every week's church builds on the week before. One church, many paths, one mountain is radically committed to telling the new story. Here goes my Dharma recap from last week. Answering the call of prophecy, envisioning new possibilities, and the dignity of prayer. Every human being holds the capacity for prophecy. You just can't declare it though. That's not real. Prophecy means you pour yourself open, you commit, you're willing to do the journey, to rip your heart open beyond the contractions again and again, to find your unique voice, to see new possibilities. Prophecy means the ability to enter into the inner sanctum, to enter into the inside of the inside, and to actually feel the intention of reality moving through you. Prophecy and prayer are verbs in the divine human conversation, the endless conversation between infinity and finitude. We are all prophets, but so often we are messengers that have forgotten our message. We are at a time between stories. We are the storytellers, but to be the storytellers, we can't just make it up. We study, enter, and weave together. We seek to swallow it whole, all of the interior sciences, all of the exterior sciences, swallow it whole and let it emerge as evolution, seen with our eyes, speaking with our lips, moving with our hands. The old languages won't do. The arc of evolution is long, but it's going towards coherent intimacy, towards more love. The understanding of pain and evil only makes sense in the context of an intimate universe, of a universe that's moving towards the evolution of love. That's the language we're developing. The originating creative power ultimately bursts the first atomic beings, and it takes millions of years of ecstatic turbulence, of relationships that are created for a moment and then broken, until reality is actually able to find its way to a coherent, stable intimacy. Reality seeks the first elementary particles and weaves them together into unique dynamic elements that are filled with potency and potentia, which literally birth you and I, and literally live in you and I. The core of the evolutionary spiral is bursting through our hearts, minds, and souls, and is being affirmed in our capacity as co-evolvers of our own lives and the lives of democracies in the world at this time of existential risk, this time of evolve or die. A prophet speaks truth to power and articulates a vision of what's possible, that in fact, justice can roar like a mighty force throughout the land, that in fact, the good, the true, and the beautiful lives in every human being yearning to emerge. Love is attention. So prayer is an act of love. We are placing our attention, our intimate attention, offering up our deepest self in prayer. Prayer means there's an infinity of intimacy, who holds reality, who partners with us in reality, who moves reality towards ever deeper levels of the good, the true, and the beautiful, who acts in our lives in 1,000 ways, but doesn't always step in and save us in the way we think we should be saved. We direct our attention, we focus our attention on the field. Our attention blooms reality. The universe is responsive to requests. We used to think that the universe was kind of a backdrop to this human story. No. What science and the great traditions have told us is that we are the universe in person. We stand always at the edge of the mystery. With that, I invite us to more deeply enter into the holy and sacred space of one church, many paths, one mountain. And I turn my word to you, beloved Dr. Mark Goffney.
Thank you, Christina Amelon. What a gorgeous Dharma recapitulation, right? Thank you so much, right? And to feel where we are today. And Christina, in the beautiful way you open that space, and to know the urgency of this moment and the delight of this moment. Because we think that urgency is tremulous, is painful. We associate urgency with the egoic mind and the Enlightenment traditions, but that's a mistake. If we understand enlightenment, meaning the human being fulfilling him or herself, not as a kind of static accomplishment. Ooh, I just moved a lamp. Did you hear that squeak? Like, wow. Okay. If we understand enlightenment, not as a plateau that we reach, but as a process that's always happening, right? A process of deepening maturity, deepening wholeness, deepening awakening. Then we understand that enlightenment has two dimensions. One is being, right? When we can rest in the spacious depth in which there's no urgency, in which everything is already as it should be and all is perfect and nothing needs to be changed and there's no place to go. And yet in the middle of a world that's cascading with coronavirus, in the middle of a world that has essential fault lines of inequality, essential fault lines of collapse of ethics, essential fault lines in which equal opportunity, not equal outcome, but equal opportunity is simply not a possibility, which there's not a playing field which is essentially fair. And fairness, justice, is what our souls scream for because we participate in the very nature of reality, which seeks more and more truth and more goodness and more justice and more beauty. So there's not just the enlightenment of being, there's the enlightenment of becoming. In the enlightenment of becoming, there's an urgency in this moment. And that's what our intention here. Our intention here at one church, right? One communion, one community, one coming together, where we begin to understand that that which unites us is far greater than that which divides us. We begin to understand that we need to participate directly in this new becoming, and that we need to be not just evolutionaries, but this is a moment of phase shift where being an evolutionary is not enough. We need to be revolutionaries. And revolutionaries means there are certain moments in history where the gradual movement, almost imperceptible, of evolution quickens. It's what Ray Kurzweil talks about, where he talks about the acceleration of time. There's this acceleration of time happening. We're living in times which are momentous and which are foundational. We're literally at a time between worlds and a time between stories. We're at a pivoting point. We're in liminal space, is how Turner described it, right? The space between, in which every action we take, every move we make, every breath we take, if we're focusing, if we're intending for the evolution of love, is revolution. So if you wandered here for the first time and you thought you were here for a kind of sweet expansion of being, yes, we're going to expand being. Yes, underneath all of the movement, there's an unchanging ground of the eternal that holds us in every second. The infinite ground of consciousness, where our mind expands and there's no place to go and we face death and death doesn't matter. And that's what we call true self. The true self that lives underneath it all, underneath all of the separation. And at the same time, we're going to be here in the revolution of becoming. Our intention is we are revolutionaries. We are here to transform the very source code of culture itself. We're here to weave together from disparate parts a new story, a new narrative, a new set of first principles, right? A global ethos for a global civilization that will allow us to actually end the suffering that dominates so much of our planet. that allows for a world in which every human being has a dream to dream, and that dream is honored, and a song to sing. And we know that song is part of the symphony, and a poem to write, and that poem is part of the great script of the universe. It's not a pluriverse. It's ultimately a universe. There's many different scores, but it's music underneath. And we're all notes in that music. And we all count, and we all matter. So, are you ready? Can I ask you a question? And I'm asking not as Mark, who wants to listen to Mark. I'm asking as the universe that moves through me and moves through you and moves through this revolution. So can I ask you a question? Is that okay to ask you a question? Everybody, is that okay? Can I ask you a question? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Who's ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? But for realsies ready. Not last week ready. Not what we did last week. Not perfunctorily, right? Not just going through the motions. Here we are again. Are you ready? Are we ready? And is he too excited about this, that guy Goffney? No, he's not excited enough. You're not excited enough. Let's get excited together. Let's get excited, right? We've exiled passion only to the sexual. Passion is the very quality of cosmos. Are we ready? Are we ready? Are we ready to play a larger game? Are we ready to step into our most gorgeous selves? Are we ready to become the dream that the universe has for each of us individually? Are we ready to participate as evolution in person in the evolution of love? Yes. Yes, we're ready. So it's amor at the center. Its insides are aligned with love. That's the beginning. The universe is not a fact, it's a story. It's not an ordinary story, it's a love story. And our personal love stories are scientifically interior and exterior sciences based on first principles, not just elusively, not just abstractly, not just metaphorically. It's not a fundamentalist claim. It's not a new age claim. It's the best scientific claim. Each of our personal love stories are chapter and verse in the universal love story. Reality is love at its very core. The four forces are all animated by Eros. It's amor at the center. So bring us into amor. Christina Amelon, Suzette. Let's feel amor, our weekly chant, and let's chant it together around the world, joining hands. Amor, its insides are lined with love. Take us inside. Oh my God, are we?
Amor, 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 amor,
around the world, amor. Real and true. Amor, thank you, Oriana and company. It was gorgeous, right? And Oriana, we're at your altar. And it was so great to get your email a couple of days ago. Friends, right, record an Amor. It's an invitation to everyone. Take the chant, right? You don't have to sing it perfectly on tune, right? I sing off tune all the time, right? As I've shared with you, sometimes when my parents would sing the Sabbath songs around the table, my mother would quietly ask me not to sing too loud because my older brother, Joey, and my dad had great voices, and there was some sense that I was ruining the harmony. So that took years of therapy, and we worked it out, okay? You don't need a perfect, quote unquote, good voice. There's no such thing as a good voice. Your voice full on is gorgeous. So I invite you, Jamie, you did it so gorgeously, right? To actually record an Amor. Krista recorded a beautiful Amor. Mosa's Amor. Oriana, this is Amor 2 plus gorgeous visual images of goddess in person in our world. Record an Amor and pour your uniquely stunning, intimate quality into Amor. And so we can actually become, and it's a gorgeous way to take your place in the Unique Self Symphony. So invitation to everyone, okay? Record an Amor, get it to Lady Krista, our lead executive producer, right? And let's blow it open. Oh my God, David, who wants to hear from David now? Let's get a yes in the chat box. Who wants to hear from David? Who wants to hear from David? I want to hear from David now. Do we want to hear from David? Thank you, Oriana. Do we want to hear from David? David, they're all saying yes. David, blow us away with the code, right? And we're laughing, we're light today, not because Corona's gotten lighter, not because the tragedy's gotten lighter, because we laugh out of one side of our mouth and we rejoice and we celebrate and we cry out of the other side. And we're light even as we're holding the full gravitas. So David, beloved, gorgeous one, right? Blow us open with the code for today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mark. So good to be here. You know, this time of coronavirus obviously has been crazy for so many of us. And one of the things that you said, I think last week or the week before, is prayer means that you're never alone. And me being an extrovert and having to cloister in my house for so many months, I've developed a practice of every morning walking out down the street for about 10 minutes, being grateful to God for everything in my life. And then I turn around and come back, and then I pray. I pray for my parents. I pray for you, Mark. I pray for my community, my work, my health. I pray to embody love more. And I feel it, right? I feel God with me, walking with me, speaking to me. So as we move into this code, find where we're already connected. Let's find how God is speaking with us and our prayers are heard. So this week's evolutionary love code. The fundamental movement of reality is the movement from loneliness to loving, from alienation to integration, from fragmentation to union. This is the movement of Eros. On the inside, Eros feels like pleasure. The failure of Eros feels like pain. And I'll say it one more time. I'll resonate this code for us so we can deepen it each time. The fundamental movement of reality is the movement from loneliness to loving, from alienation to integration, from fragmentation to union. This is the movement of Eros. On the inside, Eros feels like pleasure. The failure of Eros feels like pain. And I turn my word back to you, Dr. Mark.
David, thank you, David. Thank you so much. Can everyone feel that? Right? The movement of reality is the movement from loneliness to loving. Now, I want to catch this with you, okay? So the movement from loneliness to loving is not a psychological movement. Does everyone get that? It's not a merely psychological movement. It's not humanistic psychology, as important as it was when it emerged, right? And thank you for Fritz Perls, and thank you for Rollo May, and thank you for, right, all those beautiful people. But that's not what we're doing here. We're doing what we might call non-dual humanism. We're doing cosmo-erotic humanism, because that's what the new story is. And the new story understands that we are evolution in person. That's huge. We said last weekend, Christina Amelon beautifully recapitulated that sentence in the Dharma recap. We used to think that the universe was a background text and we were the central action. We were in the universe. We now realize, as the interior scientists intuited already thousands of years ago, but we've now realized it through an entire amplification of the sensual, the amplification of our senses. We can see through the Hubble telescope, but in ways we never could. We can see through new mathematical formula in ways that we never could. And we understand that we don't live in the universe, that the universe literally lives in us. And we understand that the universe is an intimate universe, that the universe story is one of the progression, the ever deepening progression, right, of intimacies. That evolution itself is yearning for more intimacy, but not as a mere metaphor, but as the actual structure of reality itself. And that this intimacy evolves, it unfolds, it deepens, and that the movement that lives within us, that reaches for other, that feels alone when not part of the all one, that feels alienated when my inner self, when my interior can't speak to your interior, I can have fulfilled all of the exteriors in the world. I can have food and I can have drink and I can even have status, right? And I can have position and I can have wealth and I can have all my safety needs assured. But actually, when my interior is not speaking to your interior, when I don't actually feel you witnessing me, right? Do you know what it feels to be unwitnessed? Who can feel that in the chat box? Let's find each other. Can you feel that experience of being unwitnessed? And I'm not witnessed, right? Raquel, right? Kirsten, right? I'm not witnessed, right? That's what it means to be lonely. To be lonely means to be, maybe we can catch the sentence, to be lonely means to be not witnessed in a fundamental way, right? So that loneliness is not merely a psychological construct, right? Loneliness is the structure of reality moving towards loving. And all of reality moves from loneliness to loving. And when we wake up to the experience of loneliness, and we can actually choose intimacy, that is the structure of the intimate universe awakening to itself through us. It's evolution awakening to consciousness through us. It's why Barbara and I, when we met, we said, oh, this teaching that Mark's doing about the intimate universe and its core structure in the science, right, merges with this teaching in Cook and in the great mystics in Desjardins that Barbara championed of conscious evolution. Right, do we get that? So when I choose intimacy, that's not a psychological movement. And it's not that if someone's heart's open, I don't have to navigate my way in. I always have to navigate my way in. That's why I choose intimacy. I don't choose intimacy through a magic wand or through a declaration. I've got to find my way. Right? The story of my life is the story of choosing intimacy. And the experience of failed intimacy is the experience of loneliness. And the movement from loneliness to intimacy is the movement of my life. And core to that movement is the experience of being witnessed. And we're going to talk about, that's our subject right today. But it's a revolutionary subject, right? It's not a psychological subject. You get the difference, right? Every human being in the world has a core right to transcend loneliness. And our social policy and our political policy, right, has to militate towards, right, has to facilitate the possibility for a human being to transcend loneliness. Every human being deserves to be witnessed. That's a political statement. That's what a politics of evolutionary love is all about. It's an ethical statement. It's a social statement. It's a first principle. Every human being, it has an essential elemental right to move from loneliness to loving, which means that every human being has a right to be witnessed, which means we need to ensure the economic conditions that make that possible. We need to actually move beyond the separate self of Maslow's hierarchy, right, into the realization that actually I contribute to the larger field. I'm part of true self, the larger field, and I'm a unique expression of true self. And my unique singularity is witnessed, it's received, it's honored, it's needed. So if we can just find together for a second, can we find this together, beloveds? Right, the need to be witnessed. I want to just focus there with you. Can we? Because it's painful. There's nothing more painful than not being witnessed. Who knows what we mean by that? Who can feel that? Okay, who can feel that? Right? And you can be lonely in a marriage of 40 years, right? But your desire to transcend loneliness, to be witnessed, right, is the movement of infinity alive and awake in you. Cha, right? Now, the beginning of that transcending, the beginning of that awakening into the enlightenment of being witnessed, the movement of loneliness to loving that takes place inside of you, that blows your heart open, that changes reality. Right? When your interior and the pattern, not just your interior in this moment, it's the pattern of your life. Right, my beloved friend Kirsten? Right, it's the pattern of your life. It's the pattern of my life. When a person can actually see the pattern of my life and see where I am in that pattern and what I'm doing in that pattern, and how that pattern's moving in me, and how it's got this unique contribution to make, and can feel with me my wounds and can feel with me my triumph and my greatness. I can confess before he or she that witnesses me, I can confess my vulnerability. We call that confession of vulnerability. But I can also confess my greatness. We call it confession of greatness. Wow. But no human being can be wholly witnessed by any other one human being. Our love stories don't exhaust themselves in the world of Homo sapien. We're actually witnessed by reality itself. And reality itself is not only the infinity of complexity, it's not only the infinity of, right, beyond the space-time continuum, right, but the nature of reality is what we realize as. In the interior and exterior sciences, you can actually feel it in your body, and you can actually recognize it in your mind, and your heart yearns, right, to live that truth. Reality is the infinity of intimacy that knows your name. And when we pray, we turn to the infinity of intimacy and we say, witness me. Will you witness me in my holy and in my broken hallelujah? Will you see all the patterns and all the byways of my life? Will you see all the places where I fell, desperate, unable to get up? And will you see the glories, the utter glories, Gloria, right? That is my life. That is you breathing in me, as me, and through me. So we turn now. Take us inside, right, to the holy and broken hallelujah as we turn to the infinity of intimacy. And we say first, witness me. And once you witness me, and I know that you can see me, then I turn to you and I say, help me. Help me be the most gorgeous. Help me liberate from loneliness. Help me give my gift. Help me light the world aflame with the incandescent beauty that is the singularity of my flame that participates in the great fire of reality. So let's go inside and let's be witnessed, right? Maybe for the first time by the infinity of intimacy, right? The God you don't believe in doesn't exist. The God you don't believe in of dogma doesn't exist, right? God is, right, a realization, the infinity of intimacy, the quality of personhood of cosmos that lives all the way up and all the way down, that knows you and that knows me in the way that we know each other, that hears every word. Take us inside, the holy, right, and the broken. Hallelujah. Christina, thank you.
Now I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you? It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled king composing hallelujah. Saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty and the moonlight overthrew you. She tied you to a kitchen chair, she broke your really, well really, what's it to you? There's a blaze of light in every word. It doesn't matter which you heard, the holy or the broken. Hallelujah. So I tried to touch. I've told the truth. I didn't come to fool you. And even though it all went wrong, I'll stand before the Lord of song with nothing on my tongue but hallelujah.
Who is willing to bear witness and who is willing to be witnessed? So we go to pray, we come to the chat box. If you want to be witnessed, and I want to be witnessed, right? And if we're really in any way authentic, we desperately want to be witnessed. And we want to bear witness for each other. Christina, I want to bear witness for you, right? Oriana, I want to bear witness for you. Are you willing to bear witness? Are you willing to be witnessed? And that's what we do when we pray. When we pray, we're naked. When we pray, our hearts are naked. Our bodies, our souls, we actually want to be witnessed. We want nothing left out. And that's a dimension of unique self. It means I'm in my unique authenticity, nothing split off. So we turn to the chat box, right? Can we go to the chat box together? Who's in? And let's pray. And let's ask for everything. Because when I ask for everything, when my deepest desires are revealed, then I'm truly witnessed, right? We've exiled the revelation of deepest desire to sexuality. And that's why we call sexuality intimacy, intimate relations, because we allow ourselves to be witnessed, right? Right? Intimacy and sexuality is when I allow my beloved to witness my surrender. But the sexual model is the erotic. We want to be witnessed in all of our eros. So we turn to the infinity of intimacy. And we allow the infinity of intimacy to witness our surrender. And we do it here in this public space as we witness each other. So who's willing to pray? And let's pray like we've literally never prayed before. Okay. Yes, 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 and yes, and yes. I witness you and I want to be witnessed by you. Nothing left out. Terry, I pray that my 23-year-old son, Topher, allow his love to grow even this lonely time of COVID. Oriana, there are three witnesses, right? Bears, the spirit, the water, and the blood, right? Oldest verifies versions, right? The witnesses. Mosa, I pray for the miraculous, right? The miraculous and necessary end to the enslavement of people, animals, and all of life, right? Medea, it's so good to see you. Ivan, please send our love to you, to Ivan. Madly, I pray. Mine and Ivan's wedding. Oh my God, on August 14th will be held with deep witnessed love and auspiciousness by the entire universe. And we here, especially, One church, many paths, one mountain. We're pouring love and delight. Krista Josepha, I pray to be able to witness myself through the eyes of she and know that I'm witnessed and loved by reality more and more. Right? Lady J, I pray to be bring fully my witness gift into this world. Tom, divine love, grant me the grace to trust myself totally to your sacred love. All right, Sean, I pray for health, and we're witnessing you in that prayer for health. And you witness up. Myra, welcome. I pray, see me, please. Does everyone get that prayer? See me, please. Right? I want to be seen. See me, please. Mother, see me, please. Right? Right? Can we feel that? I pray, Oriana, to give voice to the divine presence. Christina, I pray, my dad, Steve, that he finds excellent health in the next decades. I pray to be able to keep my heart open. Right, in hell, right, says Jill, right? Oh my God, I pray, right, let's feel the prayer to be witnessed, Bonnie May. I lift all people in love and light that they experience the love of God now active and moving in and through them, right? The world and the universe, and your blessing is blessing, Bonnie. Thank you, Kimberly. I pray for protection when we all return to school, right? Right, Klaus Huber, I pray for the archangels to heal the world with the fire of compassion. Harry, I pray for the transformation of chaos and pain into harmony and love in the world. Claire, but I pray for a heart and mind blowing, outrageous love festival, heart and mind blowing, outrageous love festival online that opens the source code of reality. I pray for the relaxation of the world, says Shanti, right? G, welcome. I pray for clarity, right? To be effective, my family in these times. Cynthia, try and write not just to all panels, but all panels and attendees so we can witness you, right? Cynthia, I pray that the light that moves through me meets the impulse of evolution in others. And we create a unique self-symphony. David, right? I pray that my Aikido sensei, who's afraid of losing her dojo due to COVID, may reinvent her art as Eros moves through her heart. Andre, right, I pray for the continuance of love and for your sensei. And Raquel, I pray that I'm able to create a meaningful work context which allows me to live and do the work I love as you join our team of research with your unique insight, Raquel. Jamie, I pray, Jamie, to open again and again to authentically feel it all, right? Pain, right? And joy, right? Can we feel that? Gabi, I pray to fully, right? For fully witnessing I pray for fully witness younger son and my tougher in-law, and I pray to be witnessed by them. Amen. Amen. I pray for love, right? Says love, right? Kind of let's lift all these prayers. Let's lift them to the sky, witnessed and held by the infinity of intimacy, right? We're never alone. That's not true. Loneliness is a lie. It's a lie, right? It's a lie. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about loneliness for a second, right? And before we talk about loneliness for 1 second, Claire, I want to turn to you if you're ready, right, to invite us to transcend loneliness, right? We're going to talk about loneliness now, and we're going to go all the way inside. But first, Claire, tell us about that, right? We're doing this incredible gathering online. I just want to say one thing before Claire starts. She's going to take us in for just a minute, right? The notion that online is not real is absurd. Online is absolutely real. Your body is real online. Your mind is real online. Your heart is real online. We can generate unimaginable intimacy, right, in this world of the virtual. It doesn't replace the embodied world, but it offers a new dimension that's holy and sacred. It's not second best, right? It's a holy, sacred dimension. And we get together once a year in this intensive, this intimacy intensive, where we go into a first principle as revolutionaries, and we come together for the sake of the evolution of love for 7 days. We've done it for the last 8 years. For the first time, we're doing it online, which actually enables us, all of our communities, to come together, the festival community and the One Church, One Communion community and the Center for Integral Wisdom community and the Foundation for Conscious Evolution community, right? We come together, right? As revolutionaries, we're going to meet each other. We're going to dance. We're going to sing. So Claire, take us inside. How do we register? How do we come in? How do we find our way there? And it's soon. So Claire Molinari, take us inside. Thank you so much, Professor. Yay.
Hello, everyone. And thank you, Mark, for introducing the festival. As many of you know here, I hold an outrageous love festival here in Europe with Chahat Kortan, and it's a holy field. It's a holy field of outrageous love that I'm delighted to invite you into for us to co-create together this year. And what's very unique about the festival is that it's served for 8 years now as a Dharma lab, a place where we come together to embody, to practice the Dharma. And it's through our holy community and our practice that we transform the source code. So it's also a place where Mark, for the past 8 years, has been deepening and finding newer distinctions of the Dharma. The Dharma actually often is born at the festival. And so it's a place of, it's a very unique field of sacred activism that for the first time this year, you can all join us into. And that's the beauty of having it online this year. As Mark said, it's an opportunity for all of us to join from different worlds, from church, from the festival, and to come together and become even more intimate, to play, to practice. It has its own field that I'm delighted to invite you into. And we talked about the topic before. Chahat introduced it last week. The topic is pleasure, reclaiming pleasure in times of crisis. But really what I want to tell you today is that we need you at the festival. We need every one of you. And the goddess needs us. The field of outrageous love that we're creating here week after week, year after year in church needs all of us to be at the festival. So I'm really hoping you will join us and find us if you have any questions. And thank you for the space, Mark. I turn it back to you.
Friends, fate into destiny. Let's be together this summer and let's blow it away, right? Our topic is pleasure. Pleasure as the source of all ethics and all meaning and all social policy, right? And all spirit and all science comes from and is rooted in pleasure as ethics. We're going to talk about, right, 10 voices of pleasure that live inside you. We're going to talk about actually the 22 fundamental principles of pleasure that guide reality. We're going to talk about why pleasure's an obligation, why we're held accountable for our failure to pleasure. We're going to talk about 6 levels of pleasure. We're going to talk about the rate of exchange between each level of pleasure. It's an entire world which actually deepens everything we've done. And this notion of pleasure as ethics is so critical and so gorgeous and so stunning, right? And so shocking and so beautiful. So who's going to be there? Who's showing up? What are our dates? When is the festival? It's August 10th, isn't it? Something like that? August 10th. So let's just give us a sense here. Who's showing up? Who's kind of feeling like we're going to be there? Let's kind of feel it in the chat box. Who is coming? Who's showing up here? All right, let's show up. Let's come on in. Right? Let's completely be there together and let's blow this away. And there's nothing, you can't go deep, okay, unless you go deep. You can't work out, and unless you work out steadily and you put in the hours. You can't experience true self-transformation unless you sit and practice, you chant, you meditate. You can't experience unique self and the transformation from Homo sapiens to Homo amor without going into a deep dive intensive. You can't skip this, right? This is the greatest investment that we can make in the revolution. And it's the greatest investment that each of us can make in our own transformation as part of the transformation of all of reality. Okay, so it's an invitation. You're going to meet people. It's not going to be just frontal talking. There's going to be Dharma. There's going to be not just a chat box. There's going to be the opportunity to actually meet people in small groups. So you might meet your future partner for life. You might meet your new best friend. So everyone's going to meet a whole series of people. There's going to be family groups, and it's a whole gorgeous, elaborate unfolding. And Christina Kincaid and Claire Molinaire and right, Shahat Kortan, right, are going to be each in their own ways teaching beautifully. And James Banfield and his partner Mickey are going to be with us teaching, and a whole host of other people. Right? It's going to be an incredible unfolding. It's just like super huge invitation. And if you sense my excitement, right, it's not because I got used cars for sale, right? We've relegated an exiled excitement to used cars because we're afraid to get excited. I'm so excited about this festival, right? It's number 8, and we're hitting an entirely new field of Dharma. and we're going to actually evolve something fundamental here, right, in the field of pleasure as ethics. Okay? We there? We good? Okay. So let's rest for a second. Okay, let's rest for a second. Cha, cha, cha. Let's rest. Are we ready? Let's talk about this week's code. Let's talk about this week's code. So here we go. So this week's code, right? The fundamental movement of reality is the movement from loneliness to loving, from alienation to integration, from fragmentation to union. This is the movement of Eros. On the inside, Eros feels like pleasure, right? That's what we're going to be talking about this summer. The actual feeling of reality on the inside is allurement, and allurement is driven and attracted by pleasure. That's unbelievably important to realize, right? For those of you, and I want you to feel now as we go into this teaching into this Dharma, into this set of first principles around loneliness, and we're about to close One Church at the top of the hour. Then we're going to go into about 30 minutes, right, of first principles. But as we're here in One Church, One Communion, many paths, one mountain, I want to do an actual practice with you, okay? As we talked about pleasure, okay, we good shot? We ready? As we talked about pleasure, who felt some, if you're honest, who felt some resistance, right? We're in the middle of this right, pain in the world, right? We're in the middle of these urgent challenges. They're going to talk about pleasure, really? Right? Who can actually access for a second? Who can access this? That when we talk about pleasure, you get this like, really, we're talking about pleasure? Pleasure as ethics? Like, really? I mean, who can find that, right? Pleasure doesn't have such a good name, right? Right? What are they talking about, right? You know, tell your friends, oh, I'm going to this intensive about pleasure. They'll kind of look at you right a little funny, right? Does everyone get that? Who can access that? If you can access that, just give us a yes. Let's see if we got any honest people here, right? Right? Who can access that? There's this funny, right? This funny, it's pleasure, right? We're talking about pleasure, really? We're talking about pleasure, right? Suzette, let me tell my colleagues at work, right? I'm working with this group that's doing a summer intensive about pleasure. Really? What's that about? Like, wow. So I want to access something with you, and we're going to go so deep into this. There's a basic notion in reality, which we might call quantum hedonism. It's a great word, isn't it? Quantum hedonism. And quantum hedonism, a word actually delineated by a scientist in an article about the nature of quantum reality, right, is a word that describes the fundamental allurement between particles. That which draws particles together to create a larger whole. The fundamental eros of reality is animated by pleasure. Now, that's a shocking idea. We think that pleasure is a human creation. See if you can literally reconfigure your understanding of reality and understand that reality itself is motivated and animated by pleasure, and that maybe your understanding of pleasure is too small. The great interior scientist, my dear friend Tom Abraham Cook, says that our feeling, our experience of God is too small. And it's from that sense that I always say the God you don't believe in doesn't exist, right? There's a much more expansive notion, right, of the infinite and of the personhood of cosmos and of God in the first person that lives in me, and the second person, the personhood of cosmos, and the third person, the dazzling, infinite, unfolding, evolving complexity of all the laws, right, of reality that are the three faces of the one, right? Right? Ariana, for you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? So our sense of pleasure is way too narrow. Is ice cream pleasure? Yes. Yes, ice cream is pleasure. So please don't anyone think that I'm being heretical to ice cream. Ice cream is pleasure. And I remember being 7 years old, or maybe it was 4 years old, in Bexley, Ohio, and right, and when Baskin Robbins, right, came to Bexley, and I was ecstatic. It was one of the great days of my life. It was up till then Howard Johnson's. Who can remember this? We date ourselves if we do. But who remembers when there was Howard Johnson's? Right? And in Europe, you might have, there's got to be an equivalent in Europe. So find the European. If you're in Asia, find the Asian equivalent. If you're in Africa, wherever you are, find your equivalent. I'm going to give you the American version. Right? There was Howard Johnson. Howard Johnson, what were the three flavors? Anyone remember? It was vanilla. Anybody else? Hello, help me out. What were the three flavors at Howard Johnson's? Anybody? Wake up. Good morning. vanilla, strawberry, and anybody? Chocolate. Chocolate, do you remember that? Right. And then what happened? All of a sudden you got Baskin Robbins. And how many flavors did Baskin Robbins have? Anybody remember? Who remembers? How many flavors? 21, 31. You're close, Joyce. You're close, right? 31 flavors. I remember, right? So ice cream is pleasure, for sure. But stay with me. Knowing how to let ice cream blow your heart open into the divine, that's an art form, right? And knowing that ice cream is one form of pleasure, and that actually within the 5 senses, which are taste, right? It's one of them, ice cream, taste, right? You can actually deepen your pleasure to such an extent that actually tasting a Baskin Robbins ice cream cone is like tasting chalkboard, like tasting cardboard, because your sensitivity, your palate can become so sensitive. You can actually taste a food that actually convulses you into orgiastic ecstasy, right? It's so stunningly good, right? And to be able to experience that simply on the level of food. Now imagine that actually the 5 senses are just the first level of pleasure, and you've actually mastered the 5 senses and the 10 principles of pleasure that make tasting Baskin Robbins ice cream feel like eating cardboard. And imagine there were 5 more levels of pleasure available. Like, wow, can you even imagine that? It's unimaginable. And imagine that your entire ethical life could be guided by clarifying what is true pleasure to you. Would that not change the nature of your entire reality? And imagine that this understanding of pleasure was actually downloaded into the heart code, the source code. We recoded culture with this original understanding in its evolved sense. Does everyone get that? Who gets that? Who gets a sense of that? Anyone get a sense of that? Just tell me, anyone got a sense of that at all? Okay, anyone got a sense of that at all? Anybody? Give me a yes here in the chat box if you got it. Who's got it? Right, who's got it? Can you get a sense of that? Right, can you get the ethical implications? Okay, I don't think, okay, I love you madly. Friends, we love each other madly. I don't think we got it yet. So I'm gonna give it to you one more time, okay? If you really understand pleasure, you feel pleasure, you get the ethical implication of pleasure, there will never be another starving child in the world. You get that? If you get the elementary right to pleasure, if you get that every ethical principle is encrypted in the body sacred, that the body sacred is alive with first principles, that the body sacred, which is fine-tuned for pleasure. Wow. And you get that pleasure's a skill. Who gets that sentence? Who wants to, if anyone's gonna write it down, grab it for us, write it down. Pleasure's a skill. Pleasure's a skill. You have to get the skill of pleasure, right? So let's throw in the source code, right? Let's throw in the chat box again if we can, right? The festival sign up, so we can actually be there together and do this together. We want to download the skill of pleasure, right? So can you imagine, just on the last second, can you imagine that whatever sexual experience you've had, because sexing is one level of pleasure, and that's 1 out of 6, okay? And at level 6, all of them come together. Can you imagine if all the sexing you've had in the world, right, whether by yourself, right, self-pleasuring, or in an interactive place with an other, or with visual images, right? All of the sexing you've experienced was actually paltry. It was insipid, right? It actually lacked, right, this unimaginable depth in beauty and joy that's actually available to you, that can actually blow your heart beyond imagination. And then imagine that that's only the first level of pleasure. And then imagine that actually there's level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, level 6, that these aren't contrived. These are the structures of reality itself reaching for itself, right? Can you imagine a world where there's no child starving, right? Right now, children are starving. Right now, people don't have jobs. Right now, people are struggling from paycheck to paycheck, got it devastated by Corona, not sure literally how to put food on the table this month. There are tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of people around the world who did not have that worry 4 months ago and have it this month. Pleasure's our birthright. And that every human's pleasure is our concern. And the highest pleasure, in some senses, is the pleasure of transforming the entire story. That's what we're going to do together. We're going to come and talk about pleasure in an entirely new way. We're going to evolve pleasure, because evolution at its core is the evolution of pleasure. Does everyone get a sense of this? Can everyone feel this now for a second? It's wildly important. Yay. Yay. It's so crazy, wild, good to be with you, right? It's so good to be with you. Yeah. How could anyone ever tell you that you are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you that you are anything less than whole? We're going to close here. One church, many paths, one mountain. And then we're going to go into a short, 15 to 30 minutes maximum, right? First principles Dharma on loneliness, the nature of loneliness, the nature of the movement from loneliness to loving. I invite you to be with us, to get 5 friends to join you, right? To show up in a new way, right? Go to the restroom for a second if you need to, right? Get a glass of wine if it's the right time of day, or a glass of water, and let's love this open. But first, let's look in each other's eyes, right? And just so tender, right? Quivering tenderness, right? And let's just sing it together, right? How could anyone ever tell you? And before we do it, before we go into how could anyone ever tell you, you got to know how to enact it. How could anyone ever tell you that you are anything less than beautiful? And therefore, your showing up matters. And your outrageous act of love matters. And I want to ask, if you can, before you go to the bathroom, before you move into the next step, to give your mad, full, gorgeous love attention to Krista. And Krista's going to give us all of her energy. She's going to just love us open and invite us to show up in a way that we all need to. And I just want to say one thing before Krista comes on. And Krista, we're so excited to hear you. I want to say one thing, and I want to say it I've thought about it all week. I want to say it from the heart, okay? And Barbara and I were talking this week, Barbara Marks Hubbard, and we talk these days. And she said to me, Mark, you've got to focus more. I used to do it when I was alive in that world. You got to focus on people making a monthly contribution. That was my announcement, Mark. And Mark, this can't work without that monthly contribution. And Barbara's absolutely right. Friends, kesef, money means yearning, right? We are operating, enacting a revolution in first principles. We are standing between utopia and dystopia, literally, at the pivoting point. We are holding first principles in a way that's unimaginable. I don't know of any other place that's doing what we're doing, right? We're holding this Da Vinci moment, and lots of places are doing fabulous and important things deep down. But this Da Vinci moment, you know how many people were involved in the Renaissance? 1,000. So I want to ask every single person, right? Please, right? Show up, right? Join, become an actual member, right? $25 a month, $50 a month, $100 a month, $200 a month, right? Which actually sustains this program. But do 25, start there, do 50, right? Up level, right? It will make virtually no difference in your life. It'll make all the difference here. And it's the difference between actually being in the stands and being on the court. So Krista, invite us to the court, invite us to get on the court, right? And to play, and to actually show up like all the way. Love is open, Krista. Thank you. Krista, take us inside. Yay. Cha.
Thank you, beloved Mark. Beautiful, beautiful Dharma on pleasure. And it is such a pleasure to be here with you every week together in our unique self symphony, committing outrageous acts of love, because that is our main practice, our first practice here in our community together, to do our outrageous acts of love. And I want to start by sharing with you my favorite act of love that has been committed this week, actually by our team, by beloved David and Jamie, and some help of the rest of the team, who are creating every month a beautiful, beautiful video clip coming from the Dharma. And I just want to start us off by showing a piece of that and actually inviting you to step in and join us and share this beautiful clip with your friends. As you will see in a minute, it is about our deepest heart's desire, about connecting to that outrageous love within us and connecting to our deepest heart's desire. And I want you to think of 1 or 2 friends that you might be able to share this with. You can, of course, also share it on your Facebook, on your social media, but maybe you can think of 1 friend right now who might be lonely, who might need that invitation to step into our field of pleasure and connection with each other. So let's look at this beautiful clip together for a moment, and we will share in the chat box all the ways that you can share it and the link to this clip. So as we are looking at it together, go ahead and share it on your Facebook right now and join our Unique Self Symphony.
Desiring, just wanting to be of devotion and service. And I think all of us who are on a path can recognize that we have at times fled our deepest heart's desire. Actually, we still do when we fear what she wants of us, but she wants us desperately and madly. My friends, I mixed my words a little bit with Hafizus, but you got it, right? Right? Who got that? If you got that, if that spoke to you, that went into your heart, can you feel that?
Wow, right? Can you feel that? Just take a moment right after church to look at that beautiful, gorgeous clip and go ahead and share it with your friends. And as I said before, our practice is to commit outrageous acts of love, and we share our stories of outrageous acts of love that we have personally committed, or the stories of the people that we know, or maybe stories that we read on the internet that have inspired us, and we share them on our Facebook page. If you come to our Facebook page, Outrageous Acts of Love, and you click here on the community tab, you can post your own outrageous love stories, and it is a beautiful way to stay connected with each other all throughout the week and celebrate each other's acts of love and celebrate each other's greatness. So you are invited to join us here. And the last but not least thing is, of course, our church website, which is onechurch.world. And as Mark shared so beautifully before, our money is our yearning. And we need to put our money where our heart is, where our deepest heart's desire is. And the Goddess needs us to step in and to join, not only join with our love and with our acts of love, but also with our money. So I invite you to step in and become a member and help us spread and share this Dharma with the world in all the many ways that we do. And just becoming a member and being able to contribute is already amazing, but we do also want to give back to you. So if you decide to become a member, as you can see here, you can choose your own contribution. It starts from $25 a month, and you will gain access to our online community and to these 9 beautiful courses. As you can see, the pleasure map is also here, so you can already start studying little pieces of the pleasure Dharma already. We have Awakening Your Unique Self, Reclaiming Eros. All of these courses are hours and hours of transmission of the Dharma, and they also contain beautiful, beautiful practice that you can do yourself to embody outrageous love even more. So I invite you to become a member of One Church, Many Paths, One Mountain, and I can't wait to see you inside. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to be working on producing next week. We make a commitment next week to up-level our production. No wrinkles and laxities. But hey, are we ready, everyone? Okay, we ready? You ready, everyone? Here we go. Okay, here we go. So if you're ready, give us a yes, and let's step inside. Okay, we're going to take it's going to be a short talk, a short conversation. So let's kind of, if we can find this all the way inside and deepen something here. So we've established a principle. This week's evolutionary code. David, thank you. We've established a principle. This week's evolutionary love code. The fundamental movement of reality is the movement from loneliness to loving, from alienation to integration, from fragmentation to union. This is the movement of Eros. On the inside, Eros feels like pleasure. The failure of Eros feels like pain. So what is Eros? Eros is, and we have a definition. And the definition is that we've worked with extensively. It's one of the fundamental first principle formulas. Eros is the experience of radical aliveness. And if someone wants to write it in the chat box, we'll actually write together. That'd be fantastic. Eros is, and if you're listening to this and you're not with us live, that's fantastic. To actually take the time now and actually write it as we say it, because when you write it, something happens. Are you up for doing that? If you're up for doing that, that helps. So eros is the experience of radical aliveness, seeking, desiring ever deeper contact, dash, meaning ever deeper intimacy, dash, and ever larger wholes. So let me say it again. So eros is the experience of radical aliveness, seeking, desiring ever deeper intimacy, ever deeper contact, and ever greater wholes, ever greater wholeness. That's the movement of reality. Whether we're talking about the elementary particles from the very beginning of time, the new particles that emerged with the supernovas, there's an entire new generation of elements, the 100 elements that emerged. The movement of reality all through the levels of matter until matter triumphs in life. The first nanoseconds of the great flaring forth, the great Big Bang, moves us through all the levels of matter. We get to galaxies. Galaxies generate stars, and first generation stars and second generation stars. And out of stars, the sun, for example, right, out of one disk, right, in the arm, right, of the field that was sun, right, emerges, right, the 9 planets. This entire movement is the movement towards ever greater intimacy. It's ever deeper contact, ever deeper configurations of intimate coherence with ever larger wholeness. And that wholeness comes alive, right? Matter becomes life. Then we move through all the stages of life, and this same movement of eros animates the unfolding of life. And the unfolding of life then explodes, triumphs, as life awakens to its own self-consciousness, to its own self-reflection, which we call, right, mind, self-reflective mind, or the human being. Now, in this movement, there is this constant coming together, this constant movement of eros. And the movement of eros is the movement of love. That's what eros is. So the movement of evolution, at its core, is the evolution of love. And love means that I'm able to step back, make room for you. We embrace. There's a higher level of union and embrace. There's a higher level of mutuality, recognition, union, and embrace. From subatomic particles all the way up to human beings, right? Love means I step back. Let's catch this. This is a new understanding of the first principle. To love means I step back. I give you space. I give you autonomy. I affirm my own autonomy. And yet, at the same time, we embrace our allurement and we create a larger union. That's the movement of love. So that movement defines reality. Whenever a particle is by itself, it's lonely. So it seeks contact. Now, again, that's not a metaphor. It's not a declaration. That's not a fundamentalist dogma. It's not a new age claim. It's actually the nature of reality, right? The lonely particle seeks relationship and seeks stable relationship that can birth new reality. That's the very structure of the universe. It's the very structure of the intimate universe. So that structure awakens in me when I seek intimacy with you. Does that make sense? It's the same structure. And when you actually get that, we get to be at home in the cosmos for the first time, right? Does that make sense? When I get that, knowing to know you is my greatest desire. One particle wants to know the other particle, and all knowledge is carnal knowledge. And one particle wants to senses the other particle. And when I sense the other particle, I want to make contact, and I want to create a larger union. And that's called sensuality. And that's called sense making, right? And that's called carnal knowledge. And Adam knew his partner Eve. There's a primal carnal knowledge, right, which drives reality. Right? There's a quantum hedonism, meaning this movement of eros is animated by pleasure. The interior quality or feeling of eros is pleasure, which is why fragmentation is painful. When we drift apart, when we lose, right, that interior sense of being connected, of being intimate, of being witnessed, because being witnessed is an essential dimension, right? We feel seen, we feel witnessed, we feel held. And we understand that in our coming together, a larger whole is created, so we feel needed. We feel the allurement of other towards us. We feel desired. We feel seen. We feel recognized. We're chosen uniquely by the other. Right? Wow. Right? These are the dimensions of the movement beyond loneliness. Now, if I can, I want to try and locate this right in text. I'm going to locate this in a sacred text because we need to, in order to create a new world, it's why we call this one church or one communion, right? One community, right? And we're particularly invoking religious images, not because we're going back to the old religions. The old religions were the great religions, but the new religions are going to be the greater religions. But by the greater religions, we mean a shared world spirituality where there's a new shared narrative, there's a new shared story, right? There's a new shared vision. But we need to do that not by dissociating from the ancient texts, but by integrating, right? First principles are based on, right? We're here to articulate first principles, what we used to call and we still refer to as Dharma. And Dharma or first principles is the best integration of the deepest insight of pre-modern, modern, and postmodern wisdom streams, all of them integrated into a larger whole greater than the sum of the parts. That is the new story. That is the global ethos for a global civilization. And the greatest revolutionary act of this moment in time is to articulate first principles. That's what Da Vinci did in Florence in that time between worlds, which was the Renaissance. Right? What Da Vinci did in Florence in that time between worlds, which was the Renaissance, is to articulate, right, a new set of first principles. And to articulate first principles, we want to take from ancient text, which deploy the eye of the spirit and the eye of the heart. And we want to actually bring together the eye of the senses, empirical knowing in all of its forms, and the eye of the mind, all forms of science and mathematics. We want to bring together all of the sciences, interior and exterior, the eye of the mind, the eye of the heart, the eye of the spirit, the eye of the senses, into a larger knowing. That's carnal knowledge. That's to know, right? That's sensual. That's true sensuality. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to bring together this notion of the intimate universe being driven by Eros, right? This movement from loneliness to loving. And we're going to see how the intimation of that movement already in a sacred text. That's gorgeous. Okay. But before we do that, we're just going to spend a couple of minutes doing that. I want to just read to you for a second, right? What a first principle is. Okay. First principles. And if you're listening to this, right, in the replay is as good as the first play, right? This is made for the replay. You didn't, right? So, but be with us here, and you can actually look at the bottom of your screen and you'll see a link to first principles, and you can press that link and you can find what I'm about to read. So first principles express the underlying, eternal yet evolving, universal principles of value that need to be the rudder of civilization's next stage. Right? First principles are urgently needed, personally and collectively, to respond to the catastrophic and even existential risk that challenges us, invites us, and demands our response at this moment in time, at this time between worlds. First principles are ancient, time-honored, and venerable, even as they are evolutionary, emergent, and new. Isn't that gorgeous? Right? First principles are a weaving together of the most crucial, validated truths from all the wisdom streams, pre-modern, modern, and postmodern, into a new whole greater than the sum of its parts. Right? First principles are what we have referred to as the new story, or a new dharma, or a global ethos for a global civilization. First principles are implicitly shared by all the many paths. And first principles are the foundation of the one mountain itself. I just want to invite you to just copy that. Copy that, if you can copy it from the chat box, right, into your own desktop and have that. And we could talk for 7 hours about each line in first principles, because that itself is that reading of first principles itself is a new sacred text. But I want to have that in the background, right, in the context, okay? Right, as we step in. Ready? So I want to read you a text if you can. And if we can, and if someone's willing to write the text in the chat box, that'd be great. And God said, and remember, the God you don't believe in doesn't exist. We're in Genesis, 2nd chapter of the book of Genesis. And then the divine voice speaks, and the divine voice says, Lo tov heyot ha'adam levado. Lo tov, it's not good. So who's going to write with me? Anyone going to write with me? Anyone up? Okay? And if you're sitting at home, any place in the world, jot it down yourself. Don't just listen, be active. Let's actively engage. Right? God says, the divine speaks, right? It's not good for the human being to be alone. It's an incredible text. It's an incredible text. It's not good for the human being to be alone. It's an unbelievable text, right? Because if you get the refrain of the beginning of Genesis, which is the sacred text that redefined humanity, chapter 1 of Genesis is all reality being witnessed by the infinity of intimacy. So it says, and God saw that it was good. And God saw that it was good. And God saw that it was good. So this is about this quality of goodness that's inherent in reality. Goodness is not a social construction of reality. It can't be hijacked dogmatically by any religion. Of course not. It's not the surface structure of any religion. There's a shared notion of the good, the true, and the beautiful. And that notion is reified. That notion is innate in cosmos itself. And that's what the sacred text means when it says, and God saw that it was good. So you've got this refrain in chapter 1 of the book of Genesis, which is, it was good. It was good. It was good. Reality is witnessed by the divine, right? And God saw Ariana, and God said, oh, Ariana's good, right? God saw that it was good. And then after chapter 1, after this explosion, this cascading cacophony, right, of divine utterances, infinity speaking, infinity desiring finitude and manifesting reality, right? In Buddhist terms, the unmanifest become manifest. Right, in Kashmir Shaivite Hindu terms, right, the Shiva and Shakti come together and birth a new reality, right? Wow. But the explosion of the Big Bang, the quantum vacuum generates, right, from the infinite, a new reality, right? Wow. Like beyond imagination, like the greatest mystery that's never dispelled, right? This intention of the infinite, this love that the infinite has for the finite. Infinity, William Blake is in love with the projections of time, right? So it was good, it was good, it was good, it was good, it was good. And then, now Lori, go deeper with it, okay? Go step in with me, Lori. You ready? Let's step in together. All of this good, it was 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 good of chapter 1 in Genesis, then climaxes in chapter 2. And if you read this text as a literary text, read it as a literary text. If you read it as a divine text, read it as a divine text, as a psychological text, but it's a first principles text. That's what's most important. This text is articulating intuitions of first principles in the interior sciences. We're now going to bring together, you see what we mean when we say we're going to bring together the best of pre-modern, modern, and postmodern in a set of first principles. So we're now demonstrating one dimension of how we do that. We're merging evolutionary science with an original text. So all of the it was good, it was good, it was good, it was good, it was good of chapter 1 climaxes in chapter 2 where it says it's not good. It's not good. What's not good? It was good, it was good, it was good. It's not good. What's the it's not good? It's not good for the human being to be lonely. And do you understand what that means? That means that this failure of goodness isn't psychological, it's essential. Because in chapter 1, all of the statements of it was good refer time and again to the pre-human world. This is before the human notion of goodness, right, even exists. So goodness means the essential first principle structures of reality. That's what goodness means. Goodness means the nature of the intimate universe all the way up and all the way down. Goodness means the laws of evolutionary love, right? The eternal laws of evolutionary love that define and demarcate reality. Charles Sanders Peirce, the great polymath, wrote a wonderful essay called Evolutionary Love. I'm now working with, and I won't share the names, with a couple of incredible human beings, right? Among them, right, Barbara Marx Hubbard, right? We're working on, and we worked on it right before Barbara passed, and now with another partner that Barbara brought to the table on a book on the 10 laws of evolutionary love. So this man, Charles Sanders Peirce, right, wrote an essay called Evolutionary Love that I'd never heard of, actually. I had actually written an essay with Ken Wilber called Evolutionary Love. That's at the end of the Unique Self book. And if someone wants to throw the Unique Self book or a link to it in the chat box, everyone wants to get that essay. It's a great essay on the basic principles of evolutionary love. So someone sent me an essay by Charles Sanders Peirce where he also wrote an essay 100 years before on evolutionary love, which made me ecstatic. So there's laws of evolutionary love. And the laws of evolutionary love are the it was good. That's the it was good of reality. That's what reality is pointing to in chapter 1 of the book of Genesis. And God saw it was good, meaning these are the laws of goodness. right, that define reality. This is reality moving towards the good. So after all of the goodness of chapter 1, we then arrive, it's not good, or we're shocked. But all of the goodness in one divine, literary, infinite flick of the wrist, all of the it was good is nullified, and it's not good. And what's the it's not good, friends? It's not good to be lonely. It's not good to be alone, and alone in this text means lonely, right? To feel a failure of intimacy, right? And have any of us felt lonely? Right? We don't confess to loneliness. We confess to a lot. We don't confess to loneliness. Loneliness means, right? And who's felt this in the last week? Right? Who hasn't? I have. I felt lonely in the last week. Okay, who's felt lonely in the last week? Can we find each other here? Can we be on the inside of this and actually be real? Right? I feel like I'm not at home, and what am I doing here? And what's it about? And how did I get here? Right? And I'm not at home in the world. I don't feel held. I don't feel recognized. I don't feel seen. I don't feel witnessed. I don't feel desired. I don't feel chosen, right? I don't feel needed, right? So this text cries out, it's not good for the human being to be lonely. Wow, what a text. I'll make for the human being Eselo ezer kinegdo in the original Hebrew text. I'll make for you a helpmate who opposes you. What's a helpmate that opposes you? What does that mean? How can you have a helpmate who opposes you? Either the person's a helpmate or they oppose you. But actually, if you don't have mutuality in a relationship, right? If your partner doesn't have the power to stand and face you, if you can't be face to face, if it's a relationship which is fundamentally of domination, where you've given up your personhood instead of merging into a larger union, then you remain alone. So you need a relationship of interior to interior where you can say no to each other in order to say the great yes to each other. Right? Wow, it's stunning. And what does it mean? What does it mean to be in a relationship where you can transcend loneliness? That's the goal. The goal of this text is the transcending of loneliness. It's not good for the human being to be lonely. And there's a description, which we'll study at a different time in great depth, and some of us have looked at it together over the last decade. There's a description of the actual steps to transcend loneliness. But I want to at least touch the core of it. To transcend loneliness, you have to first know what loneliness is. What does it mean to be lonely? What does it mean to be lonely? Right? What does it mean to be lonely? So usually people describe loneliness. Does that make sense? People describe, okay, we describe loneliness, right? And how it feels. And that's beautiful. And it's hurt, right? And it's jagged, and it's painful, and it's sometimes agonizing, and it's desperate. Give me some words that describe, not a definition, give me some words that describe loneliness, right? Anyone, and write some down. If you're listening at home, write some words down. Just give us some words so we can feel it together. And let's find this on the inside, right? Empty, right? Suicide, right? Separated, right? Despairing, heart-wrenching, right? Heartbreaking, right? Aching, right? Desolation, right? Contracted, right? Not heard, right? Unloved, right? Meaninglessness, Simona, right? Right? Invisible, right? Right? That's the actual experience, right? I doubt it all, right? Right, Shati? I doubt the whole thing, right? Peter, right? Right? Can you follow that? Just alienated. Like, those are all feelings. Those are the feelings of loneliness. Those are critical descriptions. We have to actually evoke and feel it in order to transcend it, okay? But in order to transcend, in order to move from loneliness to loving, we actually need something more. We need actually a first principles definition of loneliness. We need to define loneliness in its essential definition. So what does loneliness mean? Right, so I want to go back to a story that I've told you before, right? Some of you, half of us, I've joined recently. Some of us are new. Some of us have been together for a decade in this revolution, and we're just getting started. We have not yet begun to revolt, right? We have not yet begun to articulate first principles. We have not yet begun to love. So I want to share with you a story that for some of you have heard and some of you haven't, but it's really, for me, the foundational story, right, of what it means, right, to be lonely and how we transcend loneliness. And it's a story about my son, Eitan. And Eitan means healthy strength. And there's only one person besides my son who I gave that name to, a beautiful man who is with us today, right? And Eitan is like 5 years old, right? 6 years old, and I'm away. I was living then in Israel, and I had traveled to Scandinavia on behalf of the Israeli government to speak in a number of communities, and kind of did this kind of Scandinavian tour thing, and was deeply involved in, you know, the particular needs that Scandinavia had at that moment. And I felt that the messengership of the Israeli government, and I wanted to fulfill the mission, and, you know, properly, and I did everything I could to prepare. And as I'm leaving, you know, my son, you know, comes over and he says, you know, Abba, right? It's Dad. He says, take this with you. And it's this box, kind of a shoe box, didn't quite fit into my luggage, but I took it with me anyways. And I go to get to Scandinavia, and I've got this big box of, you know, books with me, and I've got, you know, a bag of luggage with me, and, and I'm teaching place to place, and it's super intense, and it's a gorgeous trip. And Eliezer Sheffer, who's one of the heads of the Jewish Agency in Israel, was with us on the trip. He's a beautiful man, right, who's since passed. And it was just an intensely holy, beautiful time. I remember it, you know, like it was yesterday. And I get back to Israel, and I get home, and I come inside, and it's like midnight. And Eitan's usually happy to see me the next day when I come home, and I see that Eitan's up. And he looks at me as I walk in. He says, Abba istakalta? He says, Daddy, did you see? And my heart dropped, because his box had somehow gone to the bottom of the pile of books. And I thought I'd look at it on the plane on the way back, because I knew he wouldn't ask me about it on the phone, because those were short calls, when long distance calls then were a big deal. And I hadn't looked at the box, and he looks at me, and right, there wasn't even time to lie. And my heart just broke into 1,000 pieces. And I said, Eitan, he said, Efshar od chance, right? Could there be another? Could you give me another chance? Right? Like, wow. Like, wow. And so in this real and mythical story, right? This larger than life story beyond me and Eitan, in this mythical moment, right? In this mythical moment, I go to the car, and I get out the suitcase with the books, and the box is at the bottom. And I take out the box, and I walk back into our place, and Eitan's there, and his tears rolling down his cheeks. And I look, and there's a door handle, right, from our first apartment in Jerusalem, right? And there's a picture of his mother, right, from the Palm Beach newspaper. And there's a cross pen. I don't know who remembers silver cross pen. So I had a cross pen that disappeared, and there was the cross pen, and there's a rock. And I say to him, Eitan, maza hadvarim ha'elu? Eitan, what's the stuff? He says, Abba, ze hadvarim sheli. Natati lecha v'lo kibalta. He says, Daddy, that's my stuff. Right? I gave it to you, and you didn't receive it. So I said, Eitan, can I receive it now? He says, yes. Right? So we all have a box, and that box is our stuff. This is not a psychological category. This is the nature of reality, and that box is our stuff. It's the song that only we can write. It's the dream that's unlived. It's the wound that's untransformed. It's the greatness that hasn't been witnessed. It's the way of loving and living and laughing, and it's the hidden story. And it's the gorgeousness, and it's what we think is the ugliness. Right? It's all the stuff that's in the box of what we might call our soul print. Right? It's like a fingerprint. It's this indelibly etched individuation, but it's not your separate self. Right? It's your individuation beyond ego. Reality seeks uniqueness from the very beginning. One of the plot lines of reality is uniqueness. Every galaxy is unique. At every stage of reality, every particle is unique. The way two particles come together is always unique. Okay? Right? And so this kind of, let's try and find this, right? This stuff that's mine. Right? My unlived life and my lived life. My unwitnessed life. And all of the pain and all of the joy, my holy and my broken hallelujah. That's all in my soul print box. And we look for someone to receive it. And we're lonely until it's received. So loneliness stems from 3 places. First, we can't find a receiver. There's no one to receive our box. Second, we don't know how to share, how to tell our story. But that's not really the core. The core of loneliness is really the first dimension. We're not sure what's in our box. Because in our box is not just the meeting between soulmates of our trauma and our wounds and our brokenness. That's just one piece. It's not just to be a soulmate together, it's to be what we call a whole mate. It's our vision, it's our unique gift. It's our unique way of being and becoming. It's all of us showing up in full eros in the world and making the contribution that's ours and ours alone to make. And it's realizing reality needs your service. Reality needs your gift. Reality desperately needs the intimate chords of your gift in the unique self symphony. Okay, that's what it means, right? To transcend loneliness. It's to know what's in your soulprint box and to stand for it and to reclaim the dream. How many of us have a dream that's been lost? Who's willing to kind of be, we willing to be real here together? Wherever you are. If it's a yes, just write it down if you're listening, right? And if you're in the chat box, write it in the chat box. How many of us have a dream about ourselves that's been lost, right? Right, a dream of what we thought we would be or what we thought our lives would look like, right? How we thought we'd give our gift and it didn't quite happen that way. And somehow our fate didn't organize it that way. So this is the moment to reclaim that dream. This is the moment to turn fate into destiny. Not, again, and the 7th time I've said this today, not as a psychological construct, not as some kind of superficial moment of, right, soothing or self-soothing. And that's valid and that's good, but so much more than that. Reality is alive in you. You are I Am Evolution in person. Your reclaiming of your dream is reality's reclaiming of a dimension of its dream that can only be alive through you. And your reclaiming of your capacity to give your gift, and it might look different than you thought it did. It might look different, that's true. It doesn't look like the way we thought it did. Right, wow. I'm an Orthodox rabbi. I was originally trained as an Orthodox rabbi, right? I lived for many years in the state of Israel. I never thought I would start a think tank together with John Mackey and Barbara Marx Hubbard and Ken Wilber, right, which had nothing to do with Jewish survival, where that wasn't my goal, where I wasn't trying to reweave the fabric of the state of Israel. And then as an expression of that think tank, we'd start a new movement called Many Paths, One Mountain, which was seeking to create an international communion, a global communion of pioneering souls to articulate first principles. Never dreamed that that would be true. Never dreamed that it would be true. It wasn't even possible. Never dreamed that I'd come together, right, with Christina, right, to create a, right, wow, right, a phenomenology, right, of Eros, right, which had 12 volumes about a new vision of sexuality. Never dreamed that that was possible. Right, never dreamed that, right, I'd meet someone named Shad, right, and Shad and Christina and myself and Claire, right, would come together with James and Mickey and try and create an international festival in order to evolve the very source code of culture. It's not for me to do. And I'm an Orthodox rabbi. I read Jewish texts and I try and bring Jews back to Judaism. Right? It's got nothing to do with my dream. No, but actually, reality is different, right? Right? We're busy making our plans and reality is living us. We're lived by something larger than ourselves. We're called by something larger. Right? To be a prophet is to find my unique voice, to clarify that unique voice, to stand in the full audacity of that gift, to reject comfort when it's easy comfort, when it's comfortably numb, and to engage the pain and the tension that we need to get true pleasure. Because there is almost no greater pleasure than giving your unique gift. That's the movement from loneliness to loving, where I'm recognized, I'm needed, I'm chosen, I'm desired, I'm adored, right? Wow. My soul print is received and it's celebrated, literally celebrated, because each of us deserve to be celebrated. But again, last time I promised you, last time I'm going to say it, not just psychologically, it's not a social construction of reality. When we celebrate each other, when we witness each other in celebration, when we liberate each other from loneliness, when we receive each other's soul print boxes, when we affirm that underneath race, underneath Black Lives Matter and all lives matter, underneath identity politics, right? Underneath critical theory, there's actually a set of first principles, and those set of first principles are inexorable, and they define a reality, and we can orient ourselves. Underneath race and underneath Jewish and underneath Black and underneath Chinese and underneath Indian is your soul print, is your unique self, is your unique story. And every nation has a unique self. And those unique selves collectively and personally come together in a unique self symphony, right? Right? That is the vision of the future. The vision of the future is when every story is worth telling, and every story needs to be received, and every story needs to be witnessed, and every story needs to be celebrated, and no one's left out of the circle. Wow. That's what first principles are about. Wow. That's the revolution. That's the heart of the revolution. That's what intimacy means. Intimacy means I am seen. I am recognized. I am desired, right? I am needed, and I am celebrated, right? Wow. The universe needs our individuality. So you know what it is, friends? We need less personality. Get out of the personality and more individuality, right? We need your individuation. We need the glory of your story. We need the infinite shimmering beauty, right? That's you. That's reality having a you experience. And it's your responsibility. And I want to say this, right? I want to say this with your permission, but even without, it's your absolute obligation to live your story all the way. It's your absolute obligation to play your instrument in the unique self symphony. But it's not an obligation imposed by a government. It's not imposed by a teacher. It's imposed by the very structure of reality itself, awake and alive in you. So if I can say something personally, I witness you. I celebrate you. Let's say it to each other. I witness you. I celebrate you. Right? I witness you. I celebrate you. Thank you, everyone. Oh my God. Oh my God. Let's find each other. Let's see each other just for a second. Actually see each other's faces for this last second. First principles. I witness you. I celebrate you. I liberate you from loneliness. The movement from loneliness to loving as the basic driving movement, right, of all of reality. Amen. Amen. Cha. 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 Let's find each other. Yes.